Until today, we've only really had an outline of the science behind any of the COVID vaccines, but now it's become a bit clearer. Instead of press releases and little bits of detail gleaned from the UK regulator, we now have what scientists would regard as more of the meaty detail. Today we saw the publication of efficacy and safety analyses from the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine trials. We've also seen a much fuller data set of the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine trial. That's because before the US regulator, the FDA, discusses the possible approval of a drug or a vaccine, it publishes a synopsis of the submitted evidence. So what have we learnt about how well they protect people from getting ill from COVID? We got more detail on the headline results of the Oxford trial. You may remember it returned 2 results. The larger study group, who were given 2 full doses, showed 62% efficacy. We now know the range of uncertainty. That figure could be as low as 41% or as high as 75.7%. These figures are what is known as confidence intervals. Meanwhile, a much smaller group who were given a low dose followed by a higher dose, in a move that was not initially planned, showed 90% efficacy with confidence intervals of 67.4 and 97%. We need to be careful interpreting this. There may not be a big difference between the doses. Pfizer's large trial showed 94.6% efficacy, with smaller confidence intervals of 89.9% and 97.3%. One issue that has been flagged with Oxford's vaccine is that there were very few older people involved in the analysis. For the low-dose standard dose group, everyone was under 55, so we don't know how well it works in older people.
There was quite consistent efficacy between different age groups and races, but we've got to remember we're talking about around 190 symptomatic infections, and they're spread across these different age groups and race groups. So it's difficult to be sure about the reliability of each comparison, but I think we need to look at the overall results and see that this was a very powerful vaccine in terms of stopping people getting sick with COVID.
This isn't just about illness, it's about controlling the spread of the virus. One of the big questions is whether the vaccine is able to prevent people who get the virus but don't display symptoms from spreading the virus. Unlike the other trials, Oxford took weekly swabs to identify infections, so were able to pick up asymptomatic cases. Other trials only looked at people with symptoms and didn't test more widely for the virus. There is some evidence that Oxford's low-dose, standard-dose combination might prevent asymptomatic infection. There was a 59% reduction, but it's very uncertain because those numbers involved are so small, the confidence interval range is huge. It's from 1% to 83%. When the combination of 2 standard doses was used, there was essentially no reduction in asymptomatic infection. The figure was 4%, with very wide confidence intervals of -72% to 46%. This might mean more data and analysis are needed.
We weren't expecting this disconnect between a vaccine's effect on symptoms and a vaccine's effect on overall protection. And if we see the same shift for the Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, it's an important thing to know because it affects how you deploy the vaccine. You might need much higher coverage levels to actually achieve eradication in the long term.
Both trials report that there were more mild adverse effects in the vaccine groups than in the control group. These included fatigue, fever and headache.
Most vaccines produce any harm that they have within 2 months. Occasionally there will be problems at 4 months, and it's pretty rare to find problems that go beyond that, but we still need to be sure. So the really key next steps will be surveillance of those who've been vaccinated.
Margaret Keenan made history today as the first person vaccinated for COVID outside of a trial. We have a vaccine, but what exactly that means yet for us all is less clear.